Hi, and welcome to the recap of Unleash Your Inner 4.0, a workshop that was given in person from CNMS Advising on February 5th, 2025. So if you missed the workshop or you're just looking to find out how you can get a 4.0 and what the really most important things to hit on are, you will find out the information in this video. Now, disclaimer here, this is not going to go into study skills that strongly that those kinds of things are things we talk about in other workshops. This is really just an overview of all the things that are really, really important that 4.0 students always do every semester. So let's get started. First thing to do at the beginning of every semester, download each syllabus and read it really carefully. Some of your classes are going to have syllabus quizzes, and those are awesome because it is kind of an incentive for you to read the syllabus carefully. But basically, the syllabus is your gateway to unlocking the grade you want in each class. So think about what it tells you. We got grade breakdown. So, what are the component parts of the course that are graded? Course policies. So, is attendance mandatory? If so, how is it taken? What are the late policies for assignments? What happens if you miss a test or a quiz? All those things. We got resources, both mandatory resources and optional resources for the class. We have due dates for assignments, dates of exams and quizzes. Sometimes the schedule is separate from the syllabus in the Blackboard or um, page or for the class, but it will be there as well near the syllabus somewhere if it's broken up into two pieces. Sometimes that's just the way that the professor does that. But make sure that you look through it and read it carefully and maybe even take some notes like office hours. Hey, it's important to know when and where office hours are happening, things like that. Okay, so the next thing is time management. So this can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to break it down for you into some easy action steps because action steps are really helpful for a lot of students. So the first thing to do, choose a time management tool. You might love a paper planner. That's okay. Make sure you always have it with you. That's the only caveat here. Most students prefer a digital calendar, whether that's Apple Calendar because they have like all Mac devices that can sync across those devices. Some folks have the Android specific calendar because they have a device that works with all of that. UMBC is a Google campus, so a lot of students and staff use Google Calendar because, again, it's compatible across all of our devices. So that is often the calendar of choice for students. But when I talk about a time management tool, this is a calendar, like a place where you're actually going to write down what's going to happen every day. So add your classes. That's the first thing to add. And if you're using digital, that's great because you can just say repeats weekly, ends on this time. You can kind of go in and, um, you know, do some little digital things to set it up so that's just there for the whole semester. Any other important obligations in your life should also go in here. Think about like really important things. Do you have to pick up a sibling from school every week at the same time? That should go in there. If you have worship services that are really important to you and your family, good thing to put in there. Anything else that's really, really, really important to you that's like mandatory, absolutely first priority. That should go in first with your classes, especially if they're things that repeat. Then I want you to add commute time if you're a commuting student. It's really important to think about the commute, even if it's only 5 minutes. That is a part of your day that you need to plan. Think about family time, sleep time. It's really helpful to put in your sleep time and then kind of set that up in your smartphone to remind you that it's bedtime just for some accountability. Sleep is a huge factor in your GPA. And meal times, especially if you're on campus, you need to kind of think about when you're going to eat at True Grits or something, based on when your classes are happening and where the classes are happening. It's important to add those things. The next thing is fun stuff. Add breaks that you plan to take for real fun things. And that should be something every day that you're looking forward to because that's going to help you with efficiency. And we're going to cover that a little bit later in this video. So, breaks are important. Plan for the breaks. You're going to take breaks and you're going to feel more guilty about them if you haven't planned them in advance. So, planning on the breaks is kind of a pro tip life hack that will just help you rejuvenate that brain, be more focused when you come back to study after the break. And then is when you add your blocks of time for your study, your homework, anything for school. So there should still be plenty of time left over in your calendar for this. And put schoolwork blocks into your schedule in chunks of no more than 2 hours at a time. That's because we tend to really drop off after 2 hours. And even within those 2 hours, we need to be taking breaks every 20 to 30 minutes just for a few minutes. Let that brain reset. Again, something I'll talk about a little later in this video. But 2 hours at a time before kind of a half hour or more break. And it's nice to find the 2 hour chunks or 90 minutes or 1 hour, however long, just kind of throughout your day. Ideally, in like multiples of 30 minutes. That's really helpful. But it could be 40 minutes. That's fine too. It doesn't matter. Now, the next thing is a task list. So before you go to bed every night, make a task list for the next day. The reason it's helpful to do this the night before is that your willpower is a heck of a lot stronger before the thing that you have to do than in the moment. So if it's 8 p.m., you're finishing studying for the night because you got something to do, make your to-do list for the next day. It's just so much easier if you think like, oh yeah, like tomorrow I'm going to wake up at this time and here's the stuff I'm going to get done. It's a lot more likely that you're going to put the hard stuff on there first. Whereas if you get up, you roll out of bed, you're tired, you're not feeling it, you're not going to put that hard stuff on the calendar. You're not going to roll out of bed and say, "Yeah, I can't wait to do those really hard chem practice problems that I really need to do well in that class." Whereas the night before, you got a lot more willpower for your future self. We all know this. We've all been there, that oh, I'm going to go to the gym at 5 a.m. And then 5 a.m. comes and you're like, nope. Because probably you didn't plan it that well. You didn't get out your clothes. You didn't plan the workout. You didn't think about how you were going to get to the gym. You didn't think about what you were going to eat in the morning. If all those things are planned out, you're actually more likely to go to the gym at 5 a.m. too. There's a pro tip. So that goes into my next point here. Write down all the schoolwork you want to get done for the next day and choose the time and place you plan to do each task. So look at your schedule to see what makes sense. Maybe you've got class that ends at 12:15 and you have another class that starts at 2. So that's kind of 2 hours. You need to get some lunch on campus. Maybe you packed your lunch. So you don't need to think about it. You've got the lunch in your backpack. So, you know, maybe it makes sense for the locations of your classes to go to the library, hang out there, do some studying. So within that time frame, you've got the plan of, okay, I'm going to eat my lunch while I work on this task. Here are the two things that I really need to get done in that 12:15 to 2 o'clock time frame. By 1:50, I really need to be leaving the library so that I get to class on time, maybe even a little earlier, 1:45, so I can get a seat in the front row because this is a crowded class. Like, think about these things and make decisions in advance. So making those decisions ahead of time is going to save you a lot of mental energy when you have to get down to business. So, like, let's say you start every day with a battery of 100. Making decisions like where and when to study, what to eat, how long to study, what problems to do, like doing all those decisions, that's going to bring your battery down to like 70, just that. Decision fatigue is so real. So, if you make those decisions in advance, draining your battery before bed is no big deal, but also like it doesn't drain your battery as much to think about the decisions for the next day. It kind of gets you excited. It gets you anticipating it. You're more likely to sleep really well because you're not anxious about thinking about that stuff for the next day. All those are really good things. And you're going to have that 100% battery of your brain to just give all that energy to your schoolwork in the morning. And that's awesome. So, two reasons why you should make a task list. Okay, environment. This is also really important. Make sure to pay attention to locations and like how you do in every location that you try to study. So if you want to study between classes, find a place that makes sense for your schedule, and meaning that like you can easily get there from your class and you can easily get to your next class. But you can study effectively there without too many distractions. And we'll talk about distractions next. The library is a really good choice because others are around you and they're doing homework, and you can stop by drop in tutoring if you need some help. So the fact that others are around you doing homework, that kind of speaks to our conformity brain. So humans really, really get swayed by the power of conformity. So if other people are around you studying, it's going to make you more likely to do your homework too. You see other people being productive, you think, okay, this is the place I go to be productive. But you find your place, you do what you need to do to be productive. Think about the environment and notice, like, try studying in a few different places if you're not really sure what works for you, and just notice, like, at the end of that study session, did I do that work effectively? And what kind of work was I doing? Maybe it was some, like, just practice problems or, follow up questions for class or whatever. I'm not like learning anything deep. Maybe it doesn't matter. if there's a whole lot of noise going on around me, like I'm in the commons. But maybe for like that deep work, I'm reading that biology textbook before class. I'm really trying to absorb the material. I'm making my flashcards. I'm answering learning objectives. I'm locking in. I got to be distraction free. I need to do that in the library. Think about that. Okay, distractions. I promise we would talk about this next. So think about what distracts you while you're trying to work. It might help you to pause the video right now and actually just write some stuff down. So if you need to do that, go ahead and pause right now. Some common themes, though, they include phones. That's pretty much the number one distraction for most folks. Maybe notifications on your computer or your tablet. So kind of similar to the phone, but you're getting a notification about something and it's breaking your focus for whatever reason. Thoughts about other obligations, other people trying to talk to you, maybe knocking on your dorm room door. Maybe you're at home and your pet comes in and it wants to play with you. Maybe your younger sister comes in, say, I really need help with my chemistry homework, or your parents are trying to get you to do chores, whatever it is. That's a common thing. Maybe your friend sees you in the library, they try to start a conversation. And sometimes the environment's just too loud or quiet. Sometimes it's too cold. Maybe you forgot your headphones. Maybe you're just hungry or you're thirsty. So it's important to think about you and your needs and provide for those needs, basically. So let's talk about some strategies for getting rid of these common distractions. So, silence your phone, put it in your bag, silence device notifications. Some folks find that this is a little scary for them because what if their parent needs to get in touch with them on an emergency basis? So, in that case, you need to talk to that person who's trying to get in touch with you. Um, beforehand and say, okay, I really need to be working with no distractions. So if you need to get in touch with me, I'm going to have my devices on do not disturb. But maybe you have a compromise because your parents are really worried about that. So maybe you say, you can give me a call and then you can kind of set your device to allow that people on your speed dial list, for instance, can break the do not disturb barrier. And so you'll hear your phone buzzing in your bag, or maybe you'll feel it buzzing against your foot if your bag is next to your foot. So figure out a way where you're not going to miss the notification coming in of a phone call. Um, Even if your phone's on silent, you'll hear it buzzing or feel it vibrating. So things like that. And then silence all your device notifications as well, or figure out how to turn on the focus mode so like really important people can break that focus if there's an emergency, but otherwise you can't um, you know get all those little snippets running across your screen and distracting you from the thoughts that you need to be thinking. Okay, keep a piece of paper next to you where you can write down other thoughts. So let's say you remember in the middle of your biology reading that you really have to do laundry later because you are on your last pair of clean underwear. Write that down because that's going to take up space in your working memory. And our working memories only have a certain number of slots available to use. And so if one of those working memory spots is taken up by, I need to do laundry after this, that's not helpful because you can't give your all to the thoughts of biology. So keep a piece of paper next to you. And I really, really advocate for using actual paper here because that way you don't have to pick up your phone, which is massively distracting, or even just open a note on your device. Again, it's distracting. Keep the paper there. It's going to function as kind of an external hard drive for your brain. So you can write that stuff down without, you know, having it take up that space because you know it's there. You're no longer worried about it, forgetting it because as soon as you're done studying, you've got that list of things you need to do. Next, don't study with distracting people. If you got friends who like can't stop talking to you during study sessions, do not study with them. Or even better, if you do want to study with them or they really want to study with you, but maybe you're not even working on the same things, maybe do something for accountability. So decide, okay, we've got 2 hours to study and we're going to talk if we don't let ourselves kind of put boundaries up. So before we start studying, we're going to tell each other what we're going to do for the first hour. We're going to say, I really want to work on chem practice problems from chapter 11.5 or chem 102, for instance. So you tell your friend that. You set the timer for like 50 minutes, 50, right? When that timer goes off, you stop, put your stuff down, and those are your 10 minutes to socialize. So 10-minute timer goes on, and you chat briefly and say, okay, I got through this. And in the next 50 minutes, I want to get through this. And then you have like still like maybe 9 minutes to just chat, be like, guess what happened last night? It's so important for me to tell you this right now. I'm going to die if I don't tell you this right now. You've still got that time to be social. You know what I mean? It's really helpful. So, and then your friend also studies and they're not getting distracted by you. So, another thing you can do, go somewhere quiet, bring a sweater. This is all the kind of like, here are the specific things that distract me about certain environments. Like, it's too cold. Okay, you've got a sweater. It's too loud. I went somewhere quiet. Maybe you're always getting hungry at 2 p.m. So you've got a snack with you. You should always have a water bottle with you. That's really important to stay hydrated, keep yourself kind of just focused. Water is great for that. Um, but always have those things with you. Anything, or headphones, like I said earlier, anything that you really need to just keep yourself on task without getting distracted by other stuff. Another thing I like to advocate for is like know where the bathrooms are nearby. So, because if you have to go to the bathroom and you can't go to the bathroom, that can be super distracting. So make sure you know where the bathroom is. Okay, the next thing is class resources. 4.0 students are always aware of the following things: class textbook. This is like 90% of the time digital now, and a lot of students have absolutely no idea it even exists. First of all, the course material initiative is just part of UMBC, so you paid for the use of that textbook. So you should use it, and it is a really good resource, especially if you want like practice problems or summaries of chapters or more examples from the class of how to do X type of math problem or whatever. It's just like really useful resource. Okay, the next thing, professor and TA office hours. A good student always knows when they can talk to the professor because they have a question. This is really important. You should honestly like maybe even put it in your calendar every single week. This is office hours for this class. You don't have to go. Most of the time you probably won't go. But if you do need that professor, you know exactly when and where it is. It's already in your calendar. So it's just kind of like the path of least resistance there. The other thing you should be aware of is every single thing on Blackboard. So Blackboard pages are often like convoluted and they have a lot of folders and there's a lot of stuff in there. It will really serve you well if during the first week or second week of classes, you go into Blackboard and you take a look at everything. Open up every single folder to just see what's in there and open up those pages within those folders and see what is on this page. How is this useful to me? One thing I noticed with a lot of students, I'm going to use Chem 101 as an example. Chem 101, the professors always provide a list of extra practice questions for students to do during studying that aren't assigned for homework, but they're available like in a textbook that's used for class. Those are sometimes buried within the modules or wherever. And students who aren't doing so well after the first exam, they're like, what can I do? And I say, well, did you do the practice problems on Blackboard? And they say, what are you talking about? And we go to the Blackboard page and we find it. And they say, I've never seen this before. And I say, well, yeah, it's right here on Blackboard. They don't have time to go over that in class. They're busy teaching you chemistry. So this is your responsibility to go through Blackboard and find every single thing available to you there. Another thing, tutoring availability. Um, Go on the Academic Success Center website. Tutoring always starts the third week of classes, sometimes even earlier for math courses. And look for the drop-in hours for your class and write them down somewhere. Maybe put them in your schedule at a time that works for you. That way, if you have questions and you need to chat with the tutor, you know when you can do that. You can also check appointment tutoring. Usually, appointment tutoring happens the same time every week. So if you kind of want to be proactive about tutoring, you can just go to appointment tutoring and make an appointment for your class and say, I want to go to this every week. That's a feature of the Academic Success Center's appointment tutoring website. And then it goes into your calendar and you can go every week and ask any questions that you might have. Or you can just find out when those times are every week to make sure that you know, this is coming up. And if I need help, I can do this. Another thing is time and place of SI Pass if applicable. That's really helpful. And if you're in chemistry, you can join a chemistry tutorial center group for a lot of the classes. So knowing, how to sign up for that if you would like to, and we would definitely recommend it if you're in chemistry. That's a great way to do really well in the class. There's a lot of data on that. But SI Pass is awesome. This is a supplemental instruction peer assisted study session. So they're going to, a tutor and a learning assistant will go over questions that you have, practice problems, material from class that's confusing. It's kind of like a guided tutoring session. It's awesome. So definitely take advantage of SI Pass if it exists for your class. Now, then another thing that really good students always know how to do is ask for help because adulting is consulting. So, how do you know if you need help and what do you do when you need it? Think about this. Like maybe even pause the video and think about how you know. What's your metric? And what do you usually do when you need the help? So, a lot of students have a hard time asking for help because college is kind of a time when you become the person that you really want to be and you get to do the things that you're really interested in, and so it's, you really want to be independent. It's hard to ask for help. So how do you do that? Okay, so here's a good metric. You're getting problems wrong multiple times in chemistry or math or physics, even after using your notes, using the textbook to try and troubleshoot, um, you know checking answers, all that stuff. You're getting problems wrong, you have no idea why. That's a good reason to ask for help. Solution: ask a classmate, study with a group, use tutoring resources. Ask your professor or TA at office hours. You could also try to look it up online, but we recommend, if you want to use online resources, ask the professor or a TA or learning assistant or something, tutor. Ask a person like who kind of knows what's the good resources, because sometimes there are crappy resources, and honestly sometimes the AI is not correct, and so you want to make sure you're staying away from anything that's going to lead you astray. The professor is the best person to ask for that. Professor writes all the tests, the professor's going to tell you their best resources. Okay, another example: you don't understand a concept in biology. What would you do? Okay, well, you can look for examples in the textbook. You can watch a YouTube video about it. Just make sure it's from a reputable source. Again, maybe ask the professor. Ask a classmate to try and explain it. Try to figure out the component parts and what specifically you don't understand. So try and write it down in like layman's terms without using any big words. You might kind of find out where you're not so sure what's going on. You could ask a professor to explain at office hours, or bonus, if you do the reading ahead of time in class, which all 4.0 students do, I guarantee it, you'll kind of know where your little spots are that you didn't quite understand. So you can actually ask in class because you did the reading ahead of time, which is amazing. Okay, let's move on. So cramming. Cramming is bad. In college, you are given information in class. So you go from learning nothing about it, knowing nothing about it, to then learning some amount. Let's say we get to 15% in class. This is just an arbitrary number. 15% of mastery, which is 100%. And then you're asked to do some amount of homework to show that you've understood that concept. Now, some students, by doing the homework, get from that 15% from class to 100% just by doing the homework. Most students don't. Most students actually need a little bit more practice because that homework gets them to maybe 60%. And so if you understand 60% of the material, that might equate to a 60% on a test, which is not a great grade. So you need to account for that other 40% to get you to mastery. These are arbitrary numbers. And again, you might understand something really well just after going to class and doing the homework, but you might understand like almost nothing when you do those things. You need a lot of extra practice. So many students find that despite attending class, taking notes, doing the homework, they still don't get the exam grades they want. So, how do you bridge the gap? Think about how you would bridge that gap in your different classes. You can pause the video now and come up with some solutions for yourself. And now I ask people to pause the video and come up with these things for themselves because it actually really helps just to like come up with examples and solutions in your own brain because it makes you more likely to use them. Okay, so usually we talk about extra practice to achieve mastery. Mastery means you can't get something wrong. So, like you're presented with a type of problem in chemistry, maybe it hasn't been worded the exact way in class, but you've done so many problems on stoichiometry that you see a problem and you're like, oh, that's exactly what's going on. I've practiced this so many times, I can't get this wrong. Even if I'm nervous and there's so much adrenaline in my body that I don't even know what to do with myself. So, for chemistry, math, physics classes that have problems that you have to solve, and that's the kind of setup for the exams, we recommend dedicating 30 minutes per day per class to extra practice. So complete problems that are not assigned for class or homework. And remember when I asked you to make sure that you could access a textbook? You're going to find a lot of extra practice problems in there. Make sure to check your answers. So in the textbook, usually like every other problem has an answer. It's usually hyperlinked, which is an amazing thing about digital textbooks. So you can just click that hyperlink. It's going to take you to the answer key. Hit the back button or hit the hyperlink in the answer key. It's going to take you right back to those problems. So if they're wrong, go back and use out the worked out examples from your notes. You can go into the textbook and look for more worked out examples and see where you're going wrong. Try to troubleshoot. It's going to really help you if you can troubleshoot and then do it again to get the right answer. Because then you're going to know exactly where you are liable to go wrong and you're going to make up for that next time. Think more about it. If you're still wrong, you cannot figure it out at all. Office hours or tutoring, ASAP, like that day or the next day, you need to find the answer because students who are 4.0 students, if they get it wrong, they find the answer. That is like number one priority. You need to be able to solve every problem you attempt in practice because that's how you're going to get that grade on an exam. So, the correct practice, answer generally correct on exam. That's the principle here. So if you're always getting it correct in practice, you'll probably get it right on an exam as long as you've practiced it enough and the solution kind of pathway, neural pathway is still in your brain. So if it was 3 weeks ago, you might need to revisit that sometimes. And after you get it explained to you in office hours or tutoring, we definitely recommend like work out 5 more examples of it immediately and make sure you're getting them right and you kind of understand where you went wrong, again, where you're liable to go wrong, and make sure you kind of have the step-by-step procedure in your head. Okay, biology or another content-based class, I recommend creating flashcards out of your notes. And even better is creating the flashcards while you're reading your textbook, which is going to save you so much time. Writing down notes doesn't really help you study. So that notes are just not a useful study tool. Like reading notes, that's not great. You're just like reading something a bunch of times, you're not really absorbing it. The thing that makes you absorb things is quizzing yourself. So we call that active recall, which is what flashcards do. So if you're reading your textbook, look at the learning objectives, look at the definitions of things that are within that chapter, create questions and answers out of the material in that textbook that's important and relevant to learning objectives or is vocabulary that you're going to need to understand. Try to put things a little bit in your own words. You don't have to put them like completely rephrase things, but actually putting things in your own words is going to help start the encoding process because you're not just memorize writing it down, you are actually thinking about what that thing means. So then, once you've made your flashcards, you can dedicate 10 to 20 minutes every day or twice a day to testing yourself with the flashcards. This is going to really strengthen those neural pathways and help with memorization. And A+ student tip, move your most used phone app to a different place on your home screen and replace it with your flashcard app. You're going to start opening that flashcard up out of habit. Maybe when you're standing in line at Starbucks or Chick-fil-A, all of a sudden you're doing practice for your exam instead of scrolling on TikTok. So that's awesome. Definitely recommend that. Okay, practice tests. Make sure to take a practice test or 3 before all exams, like real exams. If your professor doesn't provide one, first of all, ask them. Say, "Hey, do you have a practice exam?" They might say no. Do not complain if they say no. Make it yourself using practice problems from the textbook or homework problems or worked out examples in the textbook so that you can check answers really easily and understand the solutions. Because this is even going to be better than taking the professor's practice test, unless you have a completely wrong handle on what's going to be asked on the tests. But you probably won't because it's really good metacognitive activity. It's a really good activity to do with a study group and will help you deduce what's really important within each unit of a class. So if you've got 5 people in your study group, each of you come up with 3 questions, then there's a 15-question test. That's awesome. And again, you can do that together as part of your study session. Just like understanding how other people are working out problems, that's going to be really, really helpful for you and your brain. Okay, take breaks. Your brain needs them. So if you're trying to study for 6 hours and you're like, I'm going to be the best student ever, and you're still not getting great grades, that's probably because you're not taking any breaks and your brain is just overloaded. So take frequent short breaks. They can really just help you regain focus in a study session. And we recommend the Pomodoro method. If you haven't heard of the Pomodoro method, it's when you study for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. It's called the Pomodoro method because the person who started using this and wrote it down used a timer shaped like a tomato, which is pomodoro in Italian, or pomodoro means tomato in Italian. So there are timers for this, and if you look in the description box of this YouTube video, there will be a link to a pomodoro timer that goes for 2 hours. So again, we don't recommend going for longer than 2 hours without a 30-minute plus break. But basically, if you're going to stay on the same task after the first Pomodoro, 25 minutes, and your 5 minutes of break time, do not pick up your phone. Use the bathroom, have some water, stretch, stare out the window. Your brain's going to thank you. And even if you are switching tasks, if you can avoid picking up your phone, that's very helpful because you will kind of lose the stuff that you learned at the end of that session. If you pick up your phone, that short-term memory is gonna die. So stuff you did earlier, maybe in the block, might not go away, but it's gonna just help you lose it faster. So the phone is the enemy for a lot of this stuff. So just do not disturb in your bag. Use the phone later. Like if you really love scrolling social media, that's fine. Just make time for it later. Don't do it while you're studying. Again, your brain's going to thank you. The boredom actually helps. It'll help you kind of reflect on that material, do some deep work and coding, all that good stuff. Okay, and fun is important. You should have a well-rounded schedule with lots of things that are actually fun. Like join the climbing club or the crafting club or something that you're doing, especially with other people, that's just like getting your mind out of your schoolwork. So this is going to help you avoid burnout. It's going to keep you studying efficiently rather than letting your homework fill up all that extra time. Homework is like gas. Gas expands to fill the container you give it. Homework does the same thing with time. If you have 6 hours to do your homework, you're going to dilly dally. The 6 hours aren't going to be that productive. If you only have 2 hours to do that homework, you're going to be super productive in that 2 hours. You're going to be saying, okay, I have something to do at the end of this 2 hours. I'm going to stay on task. I need to get this done. I have to be efficient. And you're more likely to actually be efficient. Oftentimes, busy students are the best students. So join a club or an organization on campus if you're looking for some fun. Maybe play some video games with friends in the dorms or your sibling at home. This is actually a really great way to blow off steam, and you're doing something you love and you're doing something with someone else, which is really awesome. Um, a lot of people say, I need to quit video games because I hate them. And I say, do you like video games? And they say, yeah. And I say, don't quit. Just put some boundaries up. Like, I've got an hour to do this, not 16 hours a day. You know what I mean? So, whatever you love, maybe put a boundary on it, but actually make time for it. Spend some time with your family, your siblings, your pets, your friends, people you love. Those people will help fill your battery. And maybe take a class at the rack. Those are free for students. Head to Patapsco, go for a walk on the trails. Patapsco is like just a 5-minute walk from here. You can drive over there really easily. Go to the Soapstone Trail or something. That's just a few miles. It's really peaceful in there. Moving your body is a really good way to just kind of get that blood flowing, keep the circulation up, help you encode stuff. So if you're like at the end of a long study session, it can actually really help to just take a walk. And if you don't know where to walk, just walk around the circle or go walk on the treadmill at the rack if the weather is bad. Okay, we will see you next week for another video, or you can come to our in-person workshops. They take place Wednesdays from 12 to 1 p.m. in UC 115 during the semester, and we always have snacks available. So check us out there, or see you next week on YouTube. Thanks for watching.